The making of Dinosaur Chiller Creepy Theater. Ooh, scary. It's February 2024. I just finished making a game with hand puppets in less than 2 weeks, and it's probably a good time to take a break. But I entered another game jam that would last 7 days. To top it off, I had the ridiculous idea of making all the assets in this new game out of clay and animating everything with stop motion. Was that even possible? Brackey's 11th official game jam. I first joined it on a whim. I told myself, maybe I'll just do something small with minimum effort. Of course, things didn't go according to plan. It was revealed that the theme for this jam would be, what's behind the door? I could just picture the hundreds of other entries in the jam. People clicking on doors, walking through doors, unlocking doors. I knew I had to make something that would be unique and stand out. The first wacky thing that popped into my head was, what if there was an unhinged TV horror host that was going to give you the choice of 3 doors? Who knows what's behind the doors? It's always bees behind the doors. And as soon as the doors open, millions of bees would fly out and you'd have to run for your life. Oh, and the TV horror host would be a dinosaur. Oh, and everything would be clay and animated in stop motion. I've been informed that some people may not know what a horror host is. Well, back in the days before the internet, and even before cable TV on Saturday nights, local TV stations would barely pay some guy or gal to play a ridiculous over-the-top character that would introduce terrible movies and do comedy skits to fill time.
Oh, that was so scary!
In reality, only one of the 3 doors in my game would have bees behind it. But if you did get bees, you would be transported to a maze level where you needed to run for your life to get away from the bees. For my previous game, I spent most of my time building puppets and didn't spend a lot of time on the actual gameplay. For this game jam, I was determined to really polish my gameplay as much as possible and have multiple levels for people to play. In this video, I'll show you how I sculpted my characters out of clay and how I built a game with them. For a while, I've had a big case filled with modeling clay. I've been meaning to do some stop motion with it, but I just haven't gotten around to it. This game is my excuse to stumble headfirst into the world of claymation. I started out by smooshing 2 balls of clay together. One is his cranium, and the other ball is the top of his snout. I suppose I'm making a sort of peanut shape here. Because he is going to be talking a lot, I decide to use some armature wire as a sort of hinge for his mouth to open and close. I make a U shape with the wire and wrap some clay around it. I make a neck that I stick those wires into at a 90-degree angle, and I push the head and snout that I've already sculpted down on top of all of this and smoosh everything together, smoothing over the seams. Next, I add some clay to the sides of his mouth. I guess these are a bit like jowls. For some reason, I feel like these give a little bit of personality to the character. A good example of these on a character is if you look at early examples of Fozzie Bear. He has like these little bits of folded fabric on the corners of his mouth that seem to add some goofiness to the character. I carve a little groove down the center of some red clay for the tongue. Then I roll out a small bit of white clay and carve some grooves along it. This is a quick way to make the lower teeth. I just wrap this white clay around the tongue. I make some balls of clay and pinch them to a point before sticking them in the mouth for his fangs. I add a pretty pronounced brow to my dinosaur host. I make sure it sticks out pretty far because this is going to be the most expressive part of the character that I move up and down for different emotions. I finish him off by adding some eyes, some nostrils, and some hair. I intended to make Dracula hair, but it ended up looking more like a mohawk. My idea for the game was that you would have a choice between 3 doors. 2 doors would give you some sort of power-up, and the 3rd door would throw you into a top-down style arcade maze where the player would have to reach a goal. I thought it would be funny if the player is always running from bees that come from behind one of the doors.
Big surprise! It's bees!
To begin prototyping my game, I created some temporary artwork for the little green dinosaur that would run through the maze levels. And I created some bees with a simple 2-frame animation. Making the bees follow the player through a maze was something I hadn't done before, so this pathfinding mechanic would be a bit of a personal challenge for me. I found some code online that combined pathfinding with a tile set. I could tell Godot which tiles were walls and which ones were the floor, and the bees would try to find the shortest path to the player around the wall tiles. To make things more challenging for the player, I created tiles that were holes in the floor that the player would have to walk around, but the bees would be able to fly across. A little bit of trial and error with the collision layers and masks, and I was able to make this happen. I put together a rough first level. The goal in each level would be a pool of water that the player would need to jump into to avoid getting stung by the bees. I gave the player a health bar, and I experimented with how the player character would react when stung by bees. At first I tried making the player get knocked back, but that just made the bees slowly scoot the player across the level. I settled on having the little dinosaur wobble back and forth and flash red when he got stung. Later I would add some ouch sounds. Next I made some artwork for the player health and equipment power-ups. I came up with a system that allows me to have 6 different options behind the doors. But on each level, I would also be able to specify which 3 I wanted and still have them appear randomly behind the 3 doors. I didn't want the transition from door scenes to maze scenes to be jarring, so I came up with a black polygon with zigzag edge that would animate covering the screen. That would make the transition more seamless. I wanted this game to have a satisfying game loop where you pick something behind the doors, reach the goal in the maze level, and then move on to another set of doors. To test this, I needed more than 1 level, so I created a second set of doors and another maze level. My dinosaur host would introduce each level and tell you what was behind each door. He would make side comments and hopefully be the most entertaining part of the game. I typed up a goofy script for his dialogue and recorded his lines myself. I now had my character that would say, "It's always bees!"
Ooh, scary.
For the player character in my maze levels, I start out with a blob of green clay. I already have a pretty good idea of what this character is going to look like since I've been working with some temporary artwork in my game. I just try to pull out the tail and some legs from his body, give him a little bit of a snout, and I have the basic shape that I need. Next, I try to make 6 balls about the same size with orange clay. I pinch these into spikes and attach them to his head and back and tail. His eyes are just 2 little bits of black clay. Here's my player character dinosaur all finished. He honestly looks more like a dragon than a dinosaur. Here I am animating the player character. He just has 3 different positions for his legs, and I shoot him walking to the left, to the right, and towards and away from the camera. I had made my player character out of clay, and I'd animated him walking in 4 different directions. Thankfully, it was fairly seamless to replace my placeholder artwork with my new animations, and everything worked out without too much trouble. After playing my levels several times, I knew I needed some health power-ups. This would give some relief to the players that kept getting stung, but it also would make the player traverse more of the maze. They might go out of their way or explore some dead ends just to get some more health. Here I am animating the character using a DSLR camera and a laptop with Dragon Frame stop motion software. My dinosaur host doesn't have many poses. He has 3 mouth positions, 3 eyebrow positions, and he has 2 different eye shapes. This demonstrates how useful Dragon Frame is. I'm able to see what I'm currently shooting overlaid on top of the previous frame that I shot. I'm trying to make sure only his mouth moves from frame to frame. If I accidentally bump the body out of alignment, I can move things back so everything lines up. The way I shot this was to do his brow normal, then shoot his 3 mouth poses, closed, slightly open, and open wide. Then I do surprise brow in an up position and then shoot 3 mouths with that. Then I shoot with the brows down in an angry position and then shoot the 3 mouths that go with that brow position. Running short on time, I had to resort to painting my dinosaur host's body in Photoshop instead of making him entirely out of clay. The background for the door stage was another thing I'd run out of time to build out of clay, so I just did a quick Photoshop background. The doors are sort of a main character in this game, so I was going to take the time to build them in clay, do some stop motion, and then roto them in After Effects and bring them in as sprites. If people didn't have sound turned on while they were playing the game, they would miss all the fun things the dinosaur host says, so I needed to set up a subtitle system. This is a relatively simple setup. I'm changing the text value of a label each time a different dialogue is triggered. Because I had already typed up the script for the dialogue, I was able to cut and paste his lines into my code. Pressed for time, I decided to paint the Beekeeper equipment onto the player character in Photoshop, instead of making it all out of clay. This is where I pull back the curtain a bit and reveal that the order in which you receive the equipment isn't 100% random. First you get the smoker, then the boots, then the jacket, and then finally the hat. The reason for this is that I didn't have artwork for all the different random combinations of clothing. With a more advanced setup, I could have had clothing items on different layers, or the sprites could be split up in some way. Again, everything comes down to having limited time. This game jam lasted 7 days. I spent the first 4 days fine-tuning the first 2 levels, playing them over and over again and adding features. On days 5 and 6, I built my clay models and animated them with stop motion. On day 7, I spent 18 hours creating the remaining artwork and building 8 new levels, for a total of 10. Designing the levels was probably the most leisurely of tasks. I sat on the couch with my laptop, placing walls, bees, and power-ups while I watched movies. The final few things to tackle on this game are the start screen, some instructions, and I made a cute drawing of the player dinosaur watching a movie, and I have the dinosaur host come back for one line congratulating the player for reaching the end of the game. I only have a couple sound effects of the player getting hit and power-ups being picked up. I just made these sounds with my mouth. For the music, I used a free music pack from Alka Crab on itch.io. I hope you've enjoyed seeing how I made Dinosaur Chiller Creepy Theater. Here's a few clips of the finished gameplay.
Welcome back to Dinosaur Chiller Creepy Theater. Ooh, scary. We'll get back to the movie in just a few minutes, but first, we've got some very special interactive fun for you tonight. You'll just need to pick one of these doors for a surprise, and hope it's not bees! Why does the script say hope it's not bees? What do bees have to do with anything? Oh well, just pick a door. Ah, it's bees! What are you standing there for? Run! Go jump in some water or something, and don't get stung! Oh, that was so scary. Time to pick another door again. What is that? One of those beekeeper smoker things? Why would you need that? Well, here you go anyway. Pick another door. Oh, lucky you. It looks like some health points. Those will come in handy. Let's see what's behind the next door. Yipe, it's bees. Run, find some water. Hurry, try to avoid getting stung. Welcome back. Pick a door. It's health points. It's boots. Oh no, it's bees. Oh, that was so scary. Time to pick another door again. It's health points. Is that one of those beekeeping hats? Oh well, pick another door. Oh no, it's bees.
Thanks for watching. If you haven't already seen it, check out my video on how I made my video game Sadness and Joy with hand puppets. If you'd like to see more of what I get up to, be sure to subscribe. Thanks again for hanging out with me. Take care.
What are you still doing here? Go watch another video. There's nothing to see here. Maybe go watch a scary movie. Ooh, scary.